Hello, welcome to my show that's hosted by Unique Voices in Films and the Path of Consciousness. I'm your host, Weam Namou, and my special guest today is Michael Bishara.
Hi, well, good to
Hi,
see you again,
Michael.
Weam.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
You and I.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. This has been meant to happen for a while, but we've been busy. Well, you've been busy trying to help me with PR, actually. And we've been working very nicely together for a while now.
I think so.
As you help me promote my feature film, Pomegranate. I thank you for that.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's a genuine pleasure because of the way you work and also the story of Pomegranate.
Well, and I think that the fact that we both have a Middle Eastern background, I feel, I mean, I've had publicists in the past that were really amazing. They did great work. There's a different type of relationship here. Actually, you're the first publicist I've had that's local and with a Middle Eastern background.
Okay.
I think that helps. You help me understand a lot of aspects that I had taken for granted, because normally my PR, actually I did have Detroit Free Press did write about it years ago, but I was looking more outside of the community, underestimating how powerful the community can be.
Yeah.
And you kind of reeled me in and said, well, wait, I wanted, when I invited you the first time, it was because I liked your philosophy and I found you very helpful, and I thought I even would ask you on the phone. The Middle East community would benefit so much by connecting with PR people, being, valuing more communication and such. And we will talk a little bit about that later, but I want to learn a little bit more, or I want our audience to learn a little bit more about your background and how you got into this field.
Well, I was in Washington working for the AFL-CIO, and I was education director for a college organization called Frontlash. The staff on Frontlash was working with the legislative department to promote or to help pass a minimum wage bill at the time, and then also to date myself, the American Disabilities Act. This was in the late 80s. And so I went on the road to do radio and print media on college campuses across the country, and really didn't realize what I was doing was public relations. And then my next job at the AFL-CIO was to, again, work on issue management and set up meetings with members of the House and the Senate for my boss, and help develop messaging and so on, and still didn't really realize that it was public relations. I got hired, though, in 1991 by Ogilvy, Adams, and Reinhardt, which was one of the legacy PR shops of the pioneer David Ogilvy from decades ago. And I fell in love with what I was doing. One of our clients at the time was a joint coalition between the timber industry and the environmental industry, in paper industry and the carpenters union, to discuss and help work out the then pretty controversial but urgent spotted owl issue. If you remember, the spotted owl population was endangered in the Pacific Northwest. But in the effort to save the spotted owl in the forests, it endangered timber jobs and paper jobs. So a coalition was built, and I was a part of that coalition through this PR firm, through Ogilvy, Adams, and Reinhardt. One of the things that I messaged, if you will, or came up with, was for the Washington State Fair, a bumper sticker that, while respecting the plight of the spotted owl, I also understood the pain felt by families who were facing job losses. So I came up with a bumper sticker that said, "My family is an endangered species." So it just went on from there, and I just kept getting deeper and deeper. I found that I had a real love for messaging and bringing people together. Sure, with consensus, but also finding ways where people could bridge their differences, such as labor unions and industry, to work on a common goal.
So it sounds like you were working on more international topics. Did you?
No, those were topics that concern greatly the Pacific Northwest of this country, Washington, Oregon, and Northern California.
Okay. And then when did you get involved more so with the Middle Eastern community?
Well, so when I was living in Washington, I moved to West Virginia, which is where I was born, and then but had grown up from the age of 8 in Detroit. We are Orthodox Christians, and I went to St. George back when it was on the old East Grand Boulevard, and then also St. Mary's on Merriman Road in Livonia. And I'd always been involved with our youth groups, with the liturgy. I was an altar boy growing up, and I loved my heritage. Going to a hafle, even doing the dapke. And when I was a kid, I played the durbaki. And, you go to conventions, you become more immersed and grateful for and in love with your heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been involved with my heritage my entire life. When we moved back here, after our second child was born, I became more involved with the community. Mayor Guido recruited to hire me to become director of public information and his press secretary. So of course, going to Dearborn, was another leap into learning more about my community, not only with Orthodoxy and Christians, but with Muslims. And also at the same time, because of some other relationships I had been developing with ACC and Haifa Khori and the like, I was becoming simultaneously more immersed, and happily so, with both the Chaldean and Muslim communities.
And did you find that when you were approaching them about this work, as you continue to do PR, did you find them receptive, or was there resistance? Because in my case, I have found, I'm a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing books, and I then transitioned a lot to films, but I continue to do books. I believe in media. I believe in communication. I do find our community, I'm talking like with regards to the Chaldean community in particular, does not really pay as much attention to this area, or doesn't, and I don't feel like they value it as much as they could, that would benefit them. And that might be a cultural thing coming from, back home, that wasn't maybe so important. It was more like the news. The news was important.
And the news was fed to them in Iraq. It wasn't as though there was press. There wasn't the same, to be polite, the same degree of press freedom or editorializing. And so you couldn't, I'm asking, there wasn't the ability to produce stories in the way that we've been working together to produce your story with American media.
That's really an excellent perspective. You're absolutely right. There was even there's even a fear. There's a big level of fear where we came from, of sharing. So it seems like we hold back. It's not that we don't want to share our stories, but the way we think that our work will speak for itself. And in many cases, yes, that's true. But then how do you get the message out? Right. That's where there seems like a broken thread between creating the work and getting the work out there. I remember when I became the executive director of the Chaldean Cultural Center, and the people would say, which houses the world's first and only Chaldean museum. And Chaldeans would say, we didn't know we had a museum. They said this repeatedly. And so one of my main objectives from the very beginning is, how do I get this message out that there is a museum? And it's inside Shenandoah, where there's thousands of people go in and out.
I love that club, but go ahead. And it's like a half mile from my house.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, did you know that there was a museum there?
Yeah,
You did know.
I did, yes.
Okay. But there was a lot of people that didn't, and that was when, I approached them before, and I really believe for us, I feel like we need to value more this kind of work. When you and I started working together, again, and this kind of work needs patience, right? It's not just like, oh, okay, let's put something on the news and then just magic is going to happen. I mean, some magic happens, but
Right.
it's not going to just get the word out to the extent that we need. There's a process to that. Share with us, what does that process, what is somebody that wants to say work with you?
Well, you bring up an excellent point, or you
Yes.
reference an excellent point. Public relations is not a 50-yard dash. In a crisis, it sometimes has to be a 50-yard dash. But that depends on the skill of the person managing crisis communications. However, in more normal cases, and it's been a pleasure working with you to talk about Pomegranate, not only Pomegranate, but your entire body of work, and developing with you the messaging to get that across. Um, it requires a degree of understanding that I don't believe a lot of people outside of Western culture understand. Um, One of my very, very best friends, who is a former Dearborn School Board president, told me, Michael, sometimes our people don't get it, speaking of public relations. Um, it's not so much that they expect immediate results, because the results are partially or initially in what media hit you do get for someone. But for it to have impact, it requires more of a marathon approach. It requires multiple platforms that you address or post on, such as social media, or getting Weam Namou on Fox 2, on WDIV, on WDET. It takes multiple media results, story placements, for an impact to really grow. And sometimes people don't either understand or have the patience for it.
Hmm. And you think part of that is probably because they don't understand it enough to understand how it works, that to have the
True,
patience for it.
true.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to do with only our communities. It could be just the average Joe six pack, as it were, in American parlance. It could just be anyone, regardless of their ethnicity, that they just don't understand or care to be patient enough for the results to boost their situation.
So I want to share something very special, that an interview that you helped me land. This interview.
Mm.
Let me see here. I think. Oh, I don't see it here. Okay. I think, okay, they still have the previous guest information. Okay. That's okay. I can play it later.
Sure.
And I can also insert it into the interview when we upload this. But you got me two interviews, one on Channel 4 and one on Fox 2 News. It might seem, I mean, this is work. I'm sure this is work for you. And it's not, some people might think like this is something that they can just do. So we have
On their own.
on their own. And I majored in communication, and I've gotten a lot of press just naturally, just because of the topics and the interest of people being interested in the talks that I give. But I did find that there was a deeper type of dig that you did. There was a different, it just went a tad deeper. What would you say is the biggest difference of people thinking they can do it on their own versus somebody that works in this field and understand their client and is working deeply with them? And from what I sensed, and I really appreciate this, that you really believe in my work. It wasn't just like, okay, let's be just like a business. I mean, part of it is business, yes, but then there was a deeper understanding and respect for the work, and that helped me as well. Because when you contact me or when I contact you, it's not just about, hey, I have this gig for you and that's it. It's okay. How can we help you grow? What are you working on next? What is happening next? And there's a relationship in that.
Yeah.
We're focused on my work. But what's the difference? What would you say is the main difference?
Knowing how to write a news release, or knowing what to emphasize. Believe it or not, the email that you send to journalists and editors with the proper, again, messaging, but the proper emphases, talking about, in Pomegranate's case, what was important for me in pitching, if you will, the story, was that Pomegranate bridges divides. And then also, it at least as important, is knowing where to send the news release. I do, but I very rarely send it only to the news desk. I have dozens and dozens and dozens of contacts that I've accrued over the many years that I've been doing this. So in the case of WDIV, I knew to send it to Greg Russell because I knew Greg was very oriented to loving, respecting, and indulging in entertainment. Greg also has been a friend for a long, long time, but also his brother, his late brother, Cliff Russell, was a very good friend of mine. But I also knew that Greg was a film reviewer and appreciated good stories and good filmmaking. So you have to know where you're sending it, whether or not it is within that person's beat and sphere of influence.
And then what happened with Fox 2 News? That was a very good
Well, I'll tell you what,
too.
I think I've had you on Fox more than once, but we actually got lucky with the latest telecast because I contacted a good friend of mine there, and she said, let me help you with this. And one of the persons to whom she sent my pitch happened to have been Chaldean.
Yes, she said when I got that, I was so excited. I said, I have to have this. And
But see, now because of you and because of that, I have her as a new contact because I didn't know her.
I see. And that takes up a lot of work.
Yeah.
It also helps. I think I really believe in energy, that one thing raises something else, and there's an effect that happens, that a person sees you somewhere, and then that triggers, kind of like a domino effect where another person is like, oh, we saw you on Fox 2, we'd like to write about you. So, and then from there, I think when you are, when you're trying to grow your business and when you're trying to grow your you're trying to spread your messaging, it's something very valuable to invest in, is in having that kind of a relationship and having somebody on your team that understands how to communicate your message to the media.
Yeah, it's essential. If you don't know how to communicate the proper messages, and in the case of Pomegranate, the goals within the film, such as building bridges and the like, and certainly the film took place in 2016, so it is contemporary. But if you don't know how to perhaps contemporize the messages in a film or a story, then you're likely not going to resonate with a reporter or an editor. Living through this political period which we are living through also elevated Pomegranate's importance and relevance because it was during the 2016 election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. So there was that fundamental divide, but then also the divide between an affluent family and a less affluent family. And then further still, a Christian family, Chaldean family, and a Muslim family. So you juxtapose those differences, those divides, however wide or not wide, and they come together and they encapsulate and become microcosms of the bigger divide, which at that time was Hillary and Trump.
Well, you bring up an important topic, though, right now, too, because I know in the past when there was sometimes, we talk about subjects being controversial, and you said, well, that's good. I believe it's good, too, because it makes us think, it makes us have dialogues. But how do you tread with that? There is so much political things happening, and how do you deal with that? Is it just, the answer could seem as simple as being diplomatic, but I believe it has to be a lot harder than just being diplomatic. How do you navigate this?
That's a great question, especially since I've been posting all day today on Facebook.
I know. I heard that you vented everything out before you came on here.
But I'll tell you, one of the things that, honest to God, that I'm proud of, and I do have clients who are across the spectrum, and I can be very opinionated personally. However, you have to be professional enough to be able to thinly slice what is important to the client, regardless of their political disposition, and what is important to you. Let me explain a little bit further. Last year or 2 years ago, I had a very conservative trade school that I think was in Madison Heights, who did and does a wonderful job providing skills and accreditation for blue-collar workers, welding, plumbing, electrical work, and the like. They have graduated thousands of kids and adults who have either made the trades their work or transitioned from another industry into the trades. My direct client contact knew where my politics were. I knew where his politics were. But he and I both chose adamantly to find out what we liked most about what we could do for each other. So for me, it was my admiration of the work that trade schools do in producing men and women that can earn a living wage, a wage for their family without going to college if they so choose. He understood how well I could help them, regardless of how he thought of my own personal politics. And we worked together for quite some time.
Michael, that is an amazing story.
I love those guys.
This is an amazing story. This is what I tried. This is what I loved about even doing Pomegranate, is that I felt like because of the characters representing different beliefs, different faiths, different political views, you start being able to hear, even despite how you feel, but then the way you listen to who that person is, and being able to see the things that are good, and the ones that you don't agree with, you can still work with that person despite that. And this is what we could have so much more communication, dialogue, and we could benefit each other so much by engaging in this way.
I agree. There would be times when I would drive up to their office, to the school, and there'd be certain political lawn signs in their property, and I would just groan and say, "Oh, geez, oh God, help me," this and that. But I would ignore that and just drive on into the parking lot and do our thing.
Yep. So prayer works.
Prayer works.
Just use prayer to calm down.
Prayer works. Calm down.
So, how can people interested in working with you? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, I would love to talk to anyone who thinks they may have a need, an issue, a set of goals, a startup that they would like to begin publicizing, providing a positive presence in social media, in legacy media, as it's called now, in radio, print, and TV. And I would love to find out what they're doing, what they're proud of, what their goals are. And they can find me at 313-289-5901 or bsharahpr.com or on LinkedIn. And I'm on Facebook, but LinkedIn is where I don't share my political views.
And I was going to say, when you were talking about for them what to share with you, I remember that we had a couple of good discussions before we even started anything.
And
it was about learning about each other.
Yeah, and I was so grateful for that because a lot of times, not a lot of times, but sometimes the potential client will, again, fall short of having enough patience and wherewithal to listen and find out the way in which you actually did. And it was very gratifying.
Well, thank you, Michael. So I've really enjoyed our relationship. I look forward to what's more to come. And we did running out of time for this segment, but if you have time to stick around, we'll do something short after, because I would like to share the opportunities that you were able to connect me with. So if you
wonderful.
stick around, that would be great.
Sure.
But do you have any last words?
I don't. I believe in what I do, even for a few years when I didn't know it was public relations. I sincerely believe in what I do. My tagline, if you will, for my company is strategy, clarity, and impact. And for me, those are the building blocks that you have to embrace and implement before you can make a difference for a client.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. And just stay tuned for the next segment where I will show you the magic that he does. Thanks.
Thanks, Weam.